Hello guys, Croftus here. Ridley Scott's Prometheus is actually a modern sci-fi descent into Dante's hell. The story perfectly parallels Dante's journey through the 9 circles of hell in Inferno. In the exact same way, the crew of the Prometheus experiences a progressively worsening series of trials, each mirroring one of the classic sins and punishments. From the limbo, lust, gluttony and wrath, all the way to the last circle of hell, which is betrayal, where the crew confronts the Luciferian figure, engineer, who betrayed humanity and tries to wipe it out. And that's what's particularly striking in here. In Dante's Inferno, in the last circle of hell, they meet Lucifer, frozen in ice. And again, Prometheus perfectly parallels this, with the engineer cryogenically frozen in his chamber. A possible reason Prometheus is such a timeless masterpiece of a movie is because the events map eerily well onto Dante's hell, circle by circle. For those who don't know, Dante's Inferno is the first part of the Divine Comedy and one of the most influential works in all of Western literature. Inferno depicts a guided journey through hell structured as 9 descending circles, each representing a specific moral failure and its consequences. Inferno is still significant today because it transforms abstract ethics into actual events by blending theology, philosophy, politics, and psychology. So let's go through the 9 circles in order, revealing how Prometheus leads its characters and us through a sci-fi reimagining of Dante's infernal journey. The first circle is limbo, the state of waiting. In Dante's Inferno, limbo is the first circle of hell, a realm of uncertainty and waiting. Souls in limbo aren't actively tormented. They exist in a deficient form of heaven, forever suspended without hope of salvation. In Prometheus, the crew's journey begins in a literal limbo as well. Not only the Prometheus ship is in limbo in space, without clear up and down orientation, the characters are in cryosleep, literally suspended in limbo between life and death. When they finally awaken aboard the spaceship Prometheus, they're also figuratively in a limbo state. There is an air of anticipation and unease. They have faith, scientific or spiritual, that they'll find something profound, yet they're still in the dark. This early phase is tranquil compared to what follows, much like Dante's limbo is calm before the true horrors deeper in hell. As the Prometheus team approaches the alien structure, the film even gives us a symbolic gate of hell moment. The crew passes through an inverted gate and then sees a giant skull on top of the temple looming above its entrance. The skull is the visual version of the line from Dante's Inferno: "Abandon all hope, ye who enters here," before the crew steps inside, just as Dante saw Hell's Gate inscribed with that dire warning. The crew sees a deathly skull marking the threshold of their descent. So passing this point, they unknowingly move out of their limbo of relative safety and into the deeper circles of their ordeal. The second circle of Dante's hell is reserved for the sin of lust, where violent winds pound the souls who were driven by passion. Prometheus portrays this circle quite literally with a giant storm. Elizabeth and Charlie are caught in that storm right before engaging in lustful intimacy. The film literally depicts swirling winds punishing its lustful characters exactly like in Dante's Inferno. Later in the movie, Elizabeth and Charlie seek comfort in each other's arms. Because Elizabeth is infertile, their intimacy can be read through certain Christian traditions as inherently sinful, detached from procreation, and both characters pay for this transgression. Charlie has already been unknowingly infected by the black goo, turning the act into a catalyst for punishment. So this moment of passion in the dark hold of the ship is full of dramatic irony. Shaw's lustful night results in a miraculous and horrific pregnancy, turning human procreation into a literal nightmare. But Shaw and Charlie are not the only characters who succumb to the sin of lust. Elsewhere, Meredith Vickers and Captain Yannick share a sly, tension-breaking flirtation that leads to an implied sexual encounter. Vickers invites Yannick to her quarters while a violent storm is rampaging outside, perfectly paralleling Dante's second circle of hell. So the message aligns with Dante's moral vision. Lust leads one astray and often exacts a steep price. So in Prometheus, moments of lust lead to the conception of the grotesque trilobite. But lust can also be seen in the crew's obsessive lust for knowledge, their passionate drive to seek our creators, the engineers. The third circle of hell is gluttony, excess at the feast. Gluttony is characterized by overindulgence and excess, punished by icy, ceaseless rain. In the film, the gluttony is symbolized by a giant meal after awakening. Having been asleep for 2 years, the crew eagerly gathers for a hearty meal aboard the ship. It's obviously understandable they need to regain strength, but the camera lingers on this feast, highlighting the almost celebratory devouring of sustenance. And this indulgence is a subtle foreshadowing, the last meal before execution. In a way, this is their last supper before damnation, and they partake with gusto. Gluttony is also embodied by Meredith Vickers, whose lavish, self-contained living module represents an overindulgence of wealth even on this alien mission. The snow behind her is a direct visual parallel to Dante's icy rain in the third circle of hell. But gluttony's mark is even more evident in Charlie Holloway's behavior. Disheartened by a setback when the initial exploration doesn't yield living engineers as hoped, Holloway drowns his disappointment in alcohol. We see him having a drink after drink, chasing numbness. His overindulgence in liquor is not just character development, it's a literal portrayal of gluttony that directly leads to his death. This drunken state makes him the perfect target for David's ominous experiment, slipping the black goo into his cup. Holloway's gluttonous lapse of judgment effectively seals his doom. In Dante's third circle, gluttons lie in filthy slush, punished by their own greed for sensory satisfaction. The fourth circle is greed, the old man's insatiable desire. When thinking about greed, one figure looms large over Prometheus, Peter Weyland, the elderly billionaire who funded the entire mission. In Dante's Inferno, the greedy are condemned to roll heavy weights in opposing circles, an eternal futile labor that symbolizes how their pursuit of wealth burdened them in life. Although Weyland does not carry any physical weights, his movement is labored even with the exoskeleton aid, which makes him appear as if he's hauling an immense, unseen weight, an embodiment of the spiritual heaviness of his greed. Weyland's greed in Prometheus is not just for money, but for life itself. He wants immortality, seeking to meet his maker and demand more life. This obsession with cheating death is the ultimate greed, a refusal to accept the mortal limits set for humans. It's revealed that Weyland has been secretly aboard the ship all along in stasis, an old man unwilling to let go. So he will stop at nothing for a chance to extend his life, even if it means exploiting his crew and even endangering the entire Earth. Weyland embodies greed by hoarding power and clinging to life. He treats the astonishing discovery of humanity's creators not as a chance for knowledge or enlightenment, but simply as a transaction. He expects to barter or steal the secrets of immortality. So when Weyland finally asks the engineer for more life, his reward is swift and brutal. The god he hoped to bribe crushes him without hesitation. In Prometheus, greed doesn't just lead to personal domination, it punishes others as well, leading the entire expedition to a deadly outcome. Weyland's fate underscores Dante's moral. Greedy pursuits end in ruin, with once grand designs reduced to nothing. The fifth circle is wrath, mutiny, and monstrosity. Wrath is the sin of uncontrolled anger. Dante fifth circle imprisons the wrathful in the swampy river Styx, where they endlessly fight each other or gruggle below the surface in rage. Prometheus gives us a stark personification of wrath in the character of Fifield, the bitter geologist, especially after he undergoes a horrifying transformation. But even before any mutations occur, Fifield displays anger and impatience. He complains about the entire mission's purpose, grows frustrated during the exploration, and at one point storms off, which leads to him getting lost in the structure. His anger and temper foreshadow how wrath will literally consume him later. The true parallel to Dante's wrath comes when Fifield is exposed to the black liquid and mutates into a murderous creature. Mutated Fifield returns to the ship as a berserker, twisted beyond recognition and fueled by blind rage. In a ferocious attack, he assaults the remaining crew with inhuman strength and fury, slaughtering several members in a chaotic frenzy. So the scene is pure wrath unleashed. Fifield no longer has reason or humanity, he is wrath incarnate, lashing out at anything in reach. Not only mutated Fifield is a figure of wrath, but it also applies to the general breakdown of camaraderie among the crew as things go wrong. The film's atmosphere grows increasingly charged with rage as events spiral out of control. Vickers pushes David and then torches Holloway. She also has an anger-filled conversation with her father. And then towards the end, violence erupts between the engineer and the crew and culminates in the fight with Shaw. In Prometheus, wrath breaks loose violently, reflecting Dante's vision of anger as a self-destructive force that literally deforms the soul, and in Fifield's case, the body as well. Sixth circle, heresy, denying of faith. Beyond wrath, Dante's sixth circle of hell is reserved for the heretics, those who denied religious doctrine and the immortality of the soul, and this perfectly applies to Prometheus. Heretics are entombed in flaming graves for eternity, a grim end for the rejection of faith. In the world of Prometheus, the theme of heresy perfectly applies to the crew's prevalent dismissal of traditional religious beliefs. Most members of the expedition are scientists or employees of Wayland Corporation who place their faith in technology, empirical evidence, or personal gain. Spiritual faith is scarce and often laughed at, and this is highlighted through Elizabeth Shaw. She is openly religious and wears her cross necklace even after discovering the engineers. And it's not a coincidence that she's the only one who survives all 9 circles of hell in Prometheus. In 2093, to many of her colleagues, Shaw's beliefs seem ancient or naive. The prevalent attitude of the crew is that science has killed religion, and encountering humanity's creators in flesh would render God obsolete. This mindset that there is no divine mystery, only science, perfectly mirrors the essence of heresy in Dante's time. Denying the soul or God was the ultimate spiritual rebellion. In Wayland's TED Talk, he declares that God is dead, yet by the film's end, Wayland himself is killed by the hand of a god. Wayland is the ultimate heretic, but the crew also has the same heretical stance. Once they discover the engineers, Shaw, who wants to believe in a higher power, asks, "Who made them?" So it's her way of fitting this revelation into a continued faith, implying that even creators of humanity must have a creator. But her partner Holloway and the rest of the crew do not entertain that line of thought. To them, the giant aliens on LV-223 are the gods they were looking for, no further questions. This makes everybody except Shaw heretics, and in Dante's hell, heretics lie in a fiery tombs for thinking the soul dies with the body. In Prometheus, nearly everyone who dies in flames. But at the same time, the crew's spiritual emptiness leads them into the literal tomb, the pyramid filled with death. So the film suggests that in the absence of faith, they are left defenseless against the horror. Shaw, the only true believer, is ironically the only one who survives the Inferno, and crawls out to the surface just like in the Divine Comedy. The seventh circle, violence. Dante's seventh circle deals with violence, divided into 3 rings. Violence against others, against oneself, and against God or nature. It's a brutal realm of boiling blood, harpies, and burning sand. Prometheus unfolds in its own orgy of violence as the mission falls apart, checking the boxes for all three types of violence along the way. By the later half of the film, bloodshed is everywhere. Crew members are killed in gruesome ways. One particularly telling, bone-crushing example is Melbourne's death by the hammerpede, which exemplifies violence against oneself. Melbourne approaches the strange creature with misguided curiosity, attempting to handle it despite obvious danger. The creature responds by violently attacking him, coiling around his arms, snapping bones, and eventually forcing itself down his throat. Melbourne walks into violence, eyes wide open. Almost an act of self-destruction through foolish scientific curiosity. In Dante's seventh circle, those who committed violence against themselves are transformed into knotted trees, eternally tormented. Melbourne's own actions directly invite a lethal outcome, as if he subconsciously facilitated his own end. But beyond that, the film showcases violence against others in many scenes. The engineer waking up and ripping humans apart, Vickers unleashing fire in Holloway, and Fifield's rampage. Even Shaw commits violence against herself out of necessity, performing a crude C-section to remove the alien parasite from her body. The engineers themselves were also preparing an act of ultimate violence against humanity, so by the end, Prometheus is drenched in it. Smashed bodies, crashes, explosion, and alien monstrosities tearing their hosts apart. The film gives us monsters of both human and alien origin doing the same work. Violence is the only language left, and it pushes the last survivors to the brink. The eighth circle, fraud and deception. Dante's eighth circle is fraud, a massive chasm of malicious deceivers divided into 10 ditches, punishing hypocrites, liars, thieves, and manipulators. In Prometheus, the incarnation of fraud is David, the polite and brilliant android who harbors secret and evil directives. David lies and manipulates throughout the film, making him a walking embodiment of betrayal of trust. His pleasant demeanor and childlike curiosity perfectly mask a cold and malicious agenda. But in general, from early on, David deceives everybody around him. He constantly withholds critical information. For example, when he deciphers the alien language and learns about the engineers, he never shares that with the crew. Instead, he conducts clandestine experiments by spiking Holloway's drink with a drop of the black goo. This act alone is pure, fraudulent treachery. Later, when Shaw falls pregnant with an alien organism, David pretends to care for her. But it's all a lie. He then tries to trick her into hypersleep, saying that it's all for her own good. So time and time again, David's soft-spoken assurances prove false. He is the perfect liar and manipulator. But even beyond David, the story is layered with other deceptions. Wayland himself deceived the crew by hiding aboard and letting them think that he was dead. Vickers too deceives by omission, not revealing her relations to Wayland and her father's presence until the last moment. This overlapping web of lies creates confusion and mistrust within the team, which is analogous to Dante's fraudulent counselors and falsifiers sowing discord in hell. Fraud proves to be a corrosive sin aboard the ship, leading the crew deeper into peril. Dante observed deceit to be the ugliest moral pit before the final betrayal. In Prometheus, the poetic justice is that the deceivers ultimately face ruin. David's manipulations contribute to the catastrophe that leaves him literally in pieces. Wayland's lies earn him nothing but a swift death at the hands of the very being he sought to deceive. And then we get to the ninth circle, treachery, the frozen devil and betrayal of mankind. So at last we come to the ninth circle of hell, treachery, the realm of traitors. In Dante's Inferno, the steepest circle is a frozen wasteland where those who betrayed their loved ones, their countries, or their followers are trapped in ice. And at the center of the circle stands Lucifer himself, the ultimate traitor, frozen from the waist down in eternal ice. And Prometheus culminates in a strikingly similar manner when the crew encounters the last engineer, a Luciferian figure in the story. Before awakening, the engineer was cryogenically frozen, just like Dante's devil suspended in ice. When David awakens him, there's a moment of awe and hope. This is effectively their meeting with God. They sought their maker's wisdom, but what they actually got is the ultimate betrayal. The engineer attacks humans violently, ripping off David's head and mercilessly killing Wayland and the others. And it's at this moment the engineer reveals himself as a treacherous destroyer rather than a benevolent creator. And what really makes this engineer a Luciferian figure is that he betrays the entire mankind. Right after awakening, the engineer rushes to launch a deadly ship intended to wipe out the entire human race. So this is treachery on a cosmic and biblical scale. Therefore, this perfectly mirrors Lucifer's betrayal of God and mankind. So the more I think about Prometheus, the more it seems like a story from Dante's Inferno. And in this chaos, Elizabeth Shaw becomes Dante. She is the sole human left alive, and she escapes the ultimate circle of hell. In Dante's poem, after confronting Lucifer, Dante and Virgil escape by climbing down the giant Lucifer's body like a wall or a ladder. At a certain point, the gravity reverses and they emerge on the other side. In a very similar way, Shaw literally crawls out on the surface from the engineer's catacombs. This ascent from the underworld echoes Dante's emergence from hell. Also, after the fight with the engineer, Shaw quite literally crawls out from the engineer's body, just like Dante climbs down Lucifer's body in Inferno. In the end, Shaw takes David's head and decides to leave LV-223 entirely. So the final image of Shaw and David's departure mirrors Dante's gaze toward the stars after hell. Her journey through hell is complete, so she chooses to seek answers in the heavens by flying off in an engineer ship. Thank you guys for watching. What do you think about the fact that Prometheus almost perfectly parallels Dante's Inferno? Leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know what other religious or demonic parallels you noticed in Prometheus. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and join the Patreon for extra support, and special thank you to those who already joined. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. My name is Croft and I'll see you in the next video.